Hi and welcome to the channel. If you are new, my name is Matt. We are a family from Fridley, Minnesota, and this is our 2021 Flagstaff 21DS. This would be the sister model to the Rockstone 2104S. And we've had this camper now for over 3 years, and I think it's time we did an owner review video. So with this rig, there's a lot of things we really like about this model, some things that we don't. And one feature that I've come to actually despise. We'll do a full interior tour, an exterior walk around, and along the way we'll point out some of the things that have broken and failed, some of the modifications we've done, and overall share the good, bad, and ugly when it comes to owning this specific model. For context, we've been RVing since 2009. We started out with pop-ups and then we moved into travel trailers. We've owned a 2018 Heartland Mallard, then upgraded to a 2020 Grand Design 24BH, and now we have this Flagstaff here. We chose this model specifically due to the fact that our kids are now all adults, don't really go camping with us anymore, and we needed something just for the wife and I. We tow with a Ford F-150 V8, and we mostly stay at state parks, so we didn't want to get an RV that was too big. So the modest size of this camper combined with a generous interior space was a big selling point, along with the fact that Flagstaff and their sister company Rockwood, they seem to have a pretty good reputation for quality. That being said, every RV is going to have issues, I know, and things are going to break. Doesn't matter if you buy a $20,000 Coleman, a $100,000 Airstream, or even a $300,000 Newmar motorhome. You know, things are going to happen. You know, that being said, again, I was hoping that we'd have less problems with a Flagstaff versus other brands. So I'll point out all the issues we've had and let me know how well ours is doing compared to the model you might have. And I do have to throw out a big disclaimer as well. During the summer when we're not using this, we do rent it out on the peer-to-peer rental platform Outdoorsy and also on our VShare. So there is going to be extra wear and tear on this compared to a regular use RV. That being said, most of our renters are vetted and repeat customers and actually take pretty good care of it. But along the way, I'll point out what issues have been direct result of rentals and what issues were just common to the RV itself. Okay, we'll start on the inside here. As you can tell, this is a model that has a Murphy bed. So that bed obviously flips down. When it's up, you have a couch here and then one slide out with a big dinette. Kitchen, bathroom, and bag. So I think our favorite thing about this camper is the amount of interior space it has for a camper that is only 23 feet long, well, less than 23 feet long. It really is amazing how roomy and spacious this interior is. And that's because it does have the Murphy bed. And we'll be talking a lot about this Murphy bed because there's definitely some pros and cons to having it. We're going to start out talking about what we like about the inside. So the pros to it is obviously when it's up, you get a couch along with your dinette. It's pretty hard to find a camper that has both those things in this size range. And the couch here, it's kind of like a couch slash theater seating. Has these nice little table trays here on a swivel. They come off, obviously. Use those quite a bit, you know, eat, have lunch, work on my laptop, whatever. And then they also have kickouts for your feet. So it's actually pretty comfy. It's a decent place to, you know, sit, hang out, watch a movie, that kind of thing. Pretty happy with the couch setup here. Moving over to the dinette. It's a really good sized dinette. And my wife, when we're camping, we like to play a lot of board games, do puzzles, that kind of thing. So it's a decent table, so it works really good for that. We like that this camper has a nice upscale, well-built feel to it. Right when we walked into this camper before we bought it, it just kind of hit us that it just looked and felt so much nicer than everything else we were looking at. And most campers nowadays, everything is built with particle board veneer wrap, and this has a lot of that, don't get me wrong, but there is real wood mixed within the cabinetry as well, so that's kind of nice. Has additional features, you know, like the paneling on the fridge too, which a lot of RVs don't have. So overall, I think it's a nice looking and nice feeling RV. And I know a lot of the newer campers are going towards more lighter color schemes. This might be on the darker side, but I don't know, it doesn't feel outdated to me. It feels kind of upscale and still looks modern. Moving to the kitchen, we're pretty satisfied with this kitchen layout. We knew we weren't going to get a really big kitchen with a camper this size, but for what it is, it actually works pretty well. It has this flip out countertop extension, which we use quite a bit. Obviously dual basin sink. You get a oven and a stove top there, 3-burner stove top. I think a decent amount of counter space here. Has this nice little pop-up power tower with 110 and some USBs in there. We use that quite a bit. Overall, the kitchen we're pretty happy with. TV placement is always important when you're buying a camper, and I don't know, I think this one is in a pretty good spot. It's on a swivel, so you can have it set up if you're sitting at the dinette, or you can move it so you can see it when you're sitting in the couch or in bed. Actually, if you put it at just the right angle, you can see it both when you're at the couch and at the dinette. And this obviously, too, before I forget, folds down into a bed and pretty decent size. We went on a camping trip with a couple that had 2 younger kids, and they put this down into the bed and made this kind of a big movie lounge, and I don't know, all 6 of us were able to have movie night in here and be very comfortable. This RV also has some upgrades that we didn't see in a lot of other campers. Things like has a built-in sound bar that sounds pretty good. It has a built-in antenna on top of the roof for TV. And then it also has this little handle so you can rotate the antenna to get a better signal, which actually works pretty good. Also has a built-in Wi-Fi ranger, which is a Wi-Fi booster. Another little upgrade that this camper has too is a built-in water filter system. Right now it has pink RV antifreeze in it because I just winterized it, but kind of a nice little touch. We don't actually use the filter system, but it's nice to know that it's there. We also thought this model had really good storage. You have this pantry storage here. You have the cabinets above the dinette. You got 2 decent sized drawers underneath the dinette. Got this vertical storage here, and we put a lot of cleaning supplies in there. Our heater, store the dinner trays in there as well. Alongside the bed here, it has 2 vertical wardrobes. They're set up for hanging clothes. My wife likes folding all her clothes, so she put in these plastic shelf inserts, which work pretty well, and then a drawer on each side. Has a couple drawers over here, and then in the kitchen, you have a set of 4 drawers as well. Actually, 3 drawers and then this flip down storage for rags and whatnot. Talk quick about how our appliances have held up. It's been over 3 years now, and we've had no issues whatsoever. The microwave, no issues. The stove top, the oven have all worked with 0 issues. The fridge is an electric gas combo. Again, mechanically, no problems with that. And our gas furnace too. 0 issues, 100% reliable. As far as wiring and electronics, again, we haven't had really any issues except one, and it's kind of a weird one. And it's only happened 2 or 3 times, and it's when we've been using the generator boondocking, where all of a sudden appliances like the TV and the air conditioner stop working. The lights and everything else are, but those aren't. And usually when that happens, you'll check the breaker on the pedestal, or you'll hit the GFI reset. I think it's in the bathroom on this camper, but that doesn't do it. And we found that there's a reset button on the inside of the frame outside, and for whatever reason that gets tripped. We reset it and there's no problem. But aside from that, yeah, electronics, we've really not had any issues whatsoever. All right, now let's talk about some things we dislike about the interior here. I'm going to start off with the dinette here and talk about this table. While we do like the size of the table, I'm not a big fan of this design. It's just not very stable. It just moves around a lot, and as you can hear, it squeaks and it's noisy. I'm sure I could probably tighten up some screws and spray some lubricant on there, but I kind of wish it had a more simple pedestal style table. And it's not really a big deal now, but more and more campers are getting away from the carpet. Kind of wish this had the vinyl in the slide out instead of the carpet. Right now it looks fine, but you know, as time goes on, I'm sure it's going to get dingy and not look so great. Kind of wish it didn't have carpet there. This next thing is kind of nitpicky, I know, but this is a universal RV thing, not just specific to this model, but these lights on the control panel are insanely bright. At night, we'll actually end up turning these off because it can distract you from sleeping. Kind of wish they had the option to like put in a dimmer or something. So at night, we'll shut them off to get the light off, but then, you know, your water pump's not working. You get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, then you have no water to the toilet. The microwave too here, that light is so stinking bright. We actually have a little piece of duct tape that we'll put over that. Forgot to mention one of the likes we have. This does have a privacy curtain that helps a little bit, but minor thing, but I wish those lights were not so bright. Another minor thing, but we felt like we were kind of buying a little more upscale camper, but it still has the old-fashioned analog thermostat. It'd be kind of nice to have a digital thermostat with the ability to connect it to your smartphone. So probably one of the biggest dislikes we have to this camper is the bathroom. And we knew going into getting a camper this size that we were not going to get a camper with a very big bathroom. And you know, this bathroom works, but it's just, after a while, it just starts to feel really tight. As you can tell, there's just not a lot of room. We're not a huge fan of these corner radius showers. You know, you get out with the door shut, there's just not a lot of room. It's just tight, and it just starts to grate on you after time. Another thing that I don't like about this bathroom, we actually kind of laugh about it, is this door here. I mean, check that out. Look at the gap on top and on the bottom. There is no privacy when you're using the bathroom in this rig. If somebody's using that bathroom and you're out hanging out here, you feel like you're in the bathroom with them. And I think I know why they do that. Forgot to point this out earlier, but you know, one of the pros to this camper, it has one of those very powerful fans. I don't know if this is a Fantastic fan or what brand this is, but this is a really nice fan. It's very, very powerful. And, you know, let's say it's summer and it's hot, you're boondocking and you don't have air conditioning. You can open up the windows here and that fan just pulls a ton of air through the camper and really helps ventilate it. And, you know, wouldn't be able to do that, I suppose, if you didn't have this big gap. But I don't know. I would prefer a fully framed in door, and you could always open the door if you really wanted to get that airflow going. But yeah, one of the cons to having a camper this size, there's just nothing you can do. You're just not going to have a big bathroom. Okay, we're going to get back and talk some more about this Murphy bed. First thing we don't like about this setup is that behind the couch here, this is directly open to the exterior storage. I don't know if you can see down there, but this is all open. So you'd have your storage door to the outside there, and then also on the other side. And the storage doors are not insulated like the rest of the camper. So if it's cold or windy, you can actually start to feel the breeze behind the couch here. And if you don't shut your storage door, if you're like opening to get stuff in and out, bugs come directly from there into your camper. And also, it kind of prohibits you from putting anything in here, like maybe like an extra sewer hose or something that might have a smell to it. All that's going to get into the cabin of the RV. All right, to talk about the rest, I'm going to put the Murphy bed down. Here's what it looks like with the Murphy bed down, and it's actually not bad. Even with it down, it still gives you a decent amount of room in this camper. You know, you got plenty of room to walk around, get in and out. And there are times, usually we'll put it up, but there are occasions where we'll have it down all day long. But here's the biggest draw for us with having a Murphy bed. And I don't know if we really thought this through when we bought this. My wife has chronic back pain and she has to sleep in an adjustable bed. So when we go camping, she has this big foam thing that she has to put on the bed and to sleep on. And I like to use this little foam backrest for watching TV and reading and that kind of thing. But with the Murphy bed, that doesn't fit behind the Murphy bed, those things. So every morning you got to take those out and then find a place to store them. We sometimes can tuck it behind the couch, but a lot of times it just ends up here and takes up a lot of space and does create a lot of extra hassle that, like I said, we just didn't totally think through when we bought this. So there's many times where we're out camping where we'll say that it'd be so nice to have a bed that we didn't have to fuss with putting up and down every day. And I know it's a compromise, and to get that, we'd have to get a camper that is quite a bit longer. But there are times where we kind of wish we would have done that. Another gripe that I have about this camper is this front glass here. When we go outside, I'm going to talk more about it, but from the inside here, I don't get why they put it on this camper. I suppose it looks cool, but more times than not, this bed is going to be up and it's going to cover the window. And during the day is when you'd want the window to be able to see outside. At night when the bed is down, you're not really looking outside it. And again, with these type of shades that it has on, it lets so much light in right on your face. I just really wish this camper did not have a front window on it. Oh, and another thing with that shade, it's really hard to put up with one person because it's so long. Even grabbing it in the middle and trying to force it up is really difficult. You almost need two people to put that blind up. Another thing we don't like about the Murphy bed is, because it is moving up and down, it has a lot of mechanisms and hinges and different parts to it. It's actually kind of noisy, but it just kind of squeaks and groans and makes noises every time you move in the bed. After a while, that tends to get a little annoying. All right, now we're going to talk about things that have broken inside the camper. I'm going to put the bed back up to talk about that. I'll start out by saying I've actually been pleasantly surprised at how few things have broke with a camper that's 4 years old that also gets some rental use. It's actually held up very, very well. Let's go back to the Murphy bed and we'll talk about a couple things. We had, this is a renter one. We had a renter spill some water and at the base of the bed, and this is particle board, and it just soaked it right up, and now the veneer is coming off. And this Murphy bed here, it's held in place with just these two little hinge things here, and there's just still a lot of movement and weight on the Murphy bed, and all these screws have come loose. I've had to tighten those up and replace quite a few of them with bigger screws. And like the paneling behind here has come off and come loose. I actually bought a bunch of ash wood and I'm going to redo that whole section in nice solid wood. And also with this Murphy bed, things are just always coming loose down here. It has this big piano hinge type thing here, and I'm always retightening these. And I've seen on some of the Flagstaff owner groups that it's not uncommon for people that have to rebuild this whole bed system. The struts here are kind of squeaky. I put in this carpet piece, even though it's moved a little bit, to help with some of the squeaks and the noises. Overall, this the Murphy bed, I think, is kind of a weak spot in this camper. The only other rental damage that we've had is with the fridge here. So basically what happened, we had a renter who was traveling, and while they were traveling, the freezer door here had somehow come loose. I don't know if it wasn't shut all the way or what happened. So it was sticking out a little bit like this. But the problem is when this slide out is all the way in and this freezer door comes out, that slide out is kind of right here. And when they went to put the slide out, it caught this door and ended up breaking a couple of the hinges. I've since replaced them, but the door still doesn't sit completely right. When you shut these, there's supposed to be a little click. This top one doesn't do that anymore, so I'm gonna have to play with that. One thing that we had happen recently is that the sink actually came detached from the countertop, so that's something I had to replace some brackets, brace it, and then use construction adhesive to fix that. We here in the bathroom, we had the flush valve in this pedal flush here break, and then it was causing some leaking. And also along the way, anytime I have a repair, especially with plumbing, I always try to do an upgrade with a shutoff valve. So here I had to replace that, so I put a shutoff valve there, and also try to upgrade to PEX where I can. In here also we had the faucet break and leak, so I got a new one that is mostly metal with brass fittings. And then also when I did that, I put in shut-off valves down there. And otherwise, there's only been minor things. This shelf has come loose from the wall a couple times. In the bathroom here, there was one hook mounted on the door, and this is a hollow door, and it had broken off from that. So I mounted this to just make it a little more sturdy. There's been a couple trim pieces that have fallen off or come loose, but that's pretty minor and common with most campers. But again, I'll say this camper is 4 years old. Granted, we bought it when it was a year old. I don't know if the original owners had ever even used this. Inside and out, it looked brand new, but still 3 years of us using it, with some rentals. Overall, the inside has held up quite well. We've had more issues on the outside. Let's go check those out. I do want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our channel sponsor, Super Clean. I have been using these products for years. I love how quickly and effectively it cuts through grease, and they have a lot of different options which are great for detailing your rig in between rentals. I love the standard spray for getting rid of grime in areas like the stabilizer jacks or the frame. Their wheel cleaner works super easy and effectively, and they have a foam product that works really great on the steps. You can get Super Clean at all your local stores, Walmart, Target, or on Amazon. All right, starting out about our biggest like about this camper again is the size. 22.5 feet long. I just love the fact that we can go anywhere with this. We never have to worry about whether or not we're gonna fit in a site, zipping into parking lots, pit stops. It's just a great size. It's just easy to maneuver, fits anywhere, sits in our driveway really nice. There are a lot of pros to having a small camper like this. I think our next one will be a little bit bigger, and I will miss the size of this one. Again, with the Flagstaff, there are some nice upgrades that you get. Obviously, this has the fiberglass siding versus tin, and has aluminum framing throughout. That's one thing I forgot to mention on the inside. Even like the dinette, the seating and all that is all framed in with aluminum. Not something you see on a lot of campers. So I do feel like it's a well-built camper. This has dual axles, and from what I've heard, this is actually the shortest camper you can get with dual axles, and it has Torflex suspension. So it doesn't have, your leaf spring and shackles. It has these axles. My understanding is like inside that is kind of a standard axle that has these rubber strips surrounding it, and it gives it a really nice, stable, smooth ride. This toe is really, really nice. It doesn't bounce. Like I said, we have a Ford F-150, and it just tows it really well, really smooth. Love how this tows. I really like the aluminum 15-inch rims on this. This camper comes with Goodyear Endurance tires, they're top of the line tires. I replaced them this last year with Carlisle's. Goodyears have just gotten so expensive, and the Carlisle's have pretty good reviews. This has nice upgrades like the windows. These are frameless windows. So they look really nice. A con could be that they come out this way or this way. They don't slide back and forth, so you don't get as much airflow with that, but they look really nice. The awning here, it's got a decent size awning, and this is more of an old school design, with the manual turn dial there to adjust the pitch. Some of the newer ones have like little struts for pitch adjusts on them, but my last two campers had that, and we had a lot of issues with those. To me, this is a simpler setup, and it's more reliable. That being said, one thing that we did have break on the camper was this awning, and I've actually come to really hate RV awnings. Every RV we've had has had issues with the awning, and this one was kind of freak, and it happened to us, not a renter. But on the very top there, that little pin right up there, if you can see, it has this little like lock washer on it. Somehow that washer had worked its way off, and as I was putting the awning out, that pin popped out, and it just warped and wrecked this whole assembly here. I had to buy a whole new arm for that one side is like $600. I also like that this has the step above solid step system. You know, that being said, you know, one thing I don't like about it is I just don't know if it was installed incorrectly or whatnot. You won't be able to tell on camera, but it just never feels like it's perfectly level from side to side. It always just seems a little bit off. And another thing too is when you put the steps up, we were having a lot of issues. Well, see how it kind of naturally comes forward. And while we were driving, sometimes that would cause the door to pop open. So I went ahead and bought this latch mechanism and added that on. A lot of campers come with that standard. I talk about exterior storage on this camper. Pros and cons, it has a lot of different storage compartments, which is really nice. Like up here, got our leveling stuff in there. And this is that pass-through that goes all the way through. Although it's not very large. None of these spaces are very large and they're all pretty shallow. So it's hard to fit big items in there. A couple extra things that this camper has is, you know, has a mount for the TV. You can bring the TV from inside and put it there. We've actually never done that. Has some outlets on it. And then this is for a Blackstone gas powered griddle. There's a little quick connect on the bottom. Nice feature. We don't really use it a whole lot, but it's nice that it's there. Another upgrade we did is we bought an electronic keypad. That's just so nice to have. By the way, any of these additions, add-ons that we've done, if you want more information on them, I got a link in the description below. You can go to my Amazon store and those will all be listed there. Another thing we didn't really like about this camper is that these stabilizer jacks, they just got really old and rusty and crusty really quick. So I want to replace those all next year just to make it look nice. Okay, so around this camper, it has these skirting here, and most of it is plastic and it's not very well mounted. So for example, these corner pieces here, I just replaced these a couple months ago. You know, they're mounted on the top and the sides, but then on the bottom there's nothing holding it in place, so they flap. When you're going, that wind gets them, and then ultimately you end up starting to get cracks and they just disintegrate. And that also holds true for the sides here. This just happened on one of our last trips of the year. This side piece broke off. What I think happened is then air was getting in and moving this piece a lot, and from here to that first wheel arch, there's really nothing holding it in place. It's just a lot, it's just really loose and flops around a bit. So now we're getting cracks there and there, and I think that whole piece is going to have to be replaced. Not a super great design in my opinion. And while we're over here, let's talk about the slide out. I mentioned it's quite large, which gives you a lot of room inside, and it has a good mechanism. This has a rack and pinion style slide out mechanism, which is supposed to be one of the best, most reliable systems out there. However, we had to replace the gear drive motor, and basically what was happening, it has this stop can that is supposed to stop the slide when it hits the frame, but the hole in the frame is almost the same size as that stop can. So what was happening is the stop can would actually go into that hole and get stuck, which put extra pressure on the motor moving it out. And before we realized what was happening, the gears and the motor got stripped, and we had to pay, I think it was like almost $1,000 to get a new motor put in that thing. So that was pretty disappointing. And also, this is the only camper we've ever really had mice get into, and my guess is that that hole is where the mice were getting into. So I don't know if you can see, but I've got this little rubber piece that I mounted on there to try to make that hole smaller, and since then we haven't had any mice in the camper, so that must have fixed it. Let's talk about the profile of the camper. You'll notice on this camper, it has an interesting profile. So it kind of goes out to the front and then back, where most campers kind of go straight up and then back. And it's nice because it gives you a lot of extra space inside while still maintaining an overall short length on the frame. Problem is, if you carry anything in your truck that sticks out the bed, like a kayak, you could have some clearance issues. The first summer we had this, I had my longer kayak in, and it made contact with the windshield on a sharp turn, made a small little crack in it, but over time it developed into larger cracks, and we ended up having to replace the entire windshield. And that windshield is that one thing that I despise probably the most about this camper. So I mentioned on the inside the things I don't like about it. But to replace that thing, it's $1,500. We have insurance, so our deductible is $500. So that happened the first year we had it. And then this year we were going out to Glacier, and we went on some rough roads, some construction. And I don't know if you can see, but we got a rock chip. We actually got a rock chip there, end up there, and then that caused more cracking on both the inside and the outside, and now we have to again get another windshield. So that's 2 windshields we've had to replace on this camper. Life would just be so much better if this camper did not have that front windshield. All right, lastly, let's talk about the front setup here. So some nice things that this camper came with is dual batteries. And there's 20-pound tanks on this right now. It came with 30-pound propane tanks, which is pretty nice if you're gonna do some extended camping, but we really don't. So I swapped them out for 20-gallon propane tanks. It's just a lot easier to exchange. You can exchange it at any gas station. You don't have to worry about going to a filling station, and it's plenty of propane for our needs. You know, I got a little cover for the power tongue jack. Oh, the power tongue jack. We did have to replace that. That failed our first year as well. And then for batteries, I got rid of the lead acid batteries and went with 1 lithium. That 1 lithium battery does the work, can handle the workload of 2 lithiums, and it's so much lighter, so much more reliable. You can discharge it all the way down to 0, and it won't do a lot of damage to the battery. I don't know. And the price isn't that much different nowadays from lithium to lead acid. So that was a really nice upgrade. So another benefit to that and the propane tanks is a lot less tongue weight. This camper, because of the Murphy bed setup, has a really heavy tongue weight. I'll splice the number in the video here. So that's nice to lighten up the front end, just makes towing a little safer and smoother. All right, that should do it. That sums up my owner review of our 2021 Flagstaff 21DS. I guess I would sum it up by saying, overall, even though it's not perfect, we really, really like this camper. Is it perfect? No. Do we really, really love it? You know, probably not, but we're happy with it. We're content with it. You know, that being said, going back, would we have purchased this again? You know, maybe not. I did a video a while back on the perfect couples camper, and at the time I said it was a Grand Design Imagine XLS 22 MLE. And when we bought this, I was kind of looking at some and I couldn't really find one in our price range, but if I had to do it all over again, I think I would have waited or spent a little more money and got the 22 MLS. Otherwise, that does it for this video. If you're interested in learning more about renting out travel trailers, I do have a series on my channel called Is It Worth It?, where I talk about our experiences renting out our campers. For the last 5 years, we've been doing it on RV Share and Outdoorsy, and I'll be doing a video in a month or two kind of recapping our 2025 season. Otherwise, once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.